The answers to your child's swimming career are here at Psych, mental training for swimmers. And here's your host, Coach Mike.
Good day and welcome to the Psych podcast. I'm your host, Mike Connor. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest to the podcast today. A friend for years, Denise Andruss, has seen it all in swimming. Not only did she swim at Texas A&M, but she raised 4 children, 3 of whom swim competitively, with 2 in college, 1 swimming competitively, and 2 more middle school or high school age with some impressive results. Please welcome Denise Andruss to our program today. Denise, welcome to the Psych podcast. I feel like we are back at Lakeside Aquatic Club in Texas, chatting in the stands about our kids and swimming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take a moment and tell us a little bit about how you got into high school and college swimming and the experiences you had.
So I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, and at the time, it was like the perfect place for swimming. Every community had a summer pool, and all the pools had teams. And so there was a very competitive atmosphere. And pretty much everyone I knew swam at some point. So my parents got my brother and I in it. I think I was 8, had fun, and we both excelled quickly. The following year, I started club swimming. I started Y first. I did Y for 2 years and then moved to club swimming. And then, I obviously eventually got to the high school level. Mm-hmm. My parents actually moved us from one school district to another so we could swim for our specific coach. That was our club coach. And we had a very successful team. The girls won the state championships in Pennsylvania my junior year. And then I was recruited by a lot of schools. I was an All-American butterflyer high school. Recruited by a lot of schools. Back then it was just letters. And honestly, I did not know how to deal with the process, even though my brother had gone through it the year before. He swam for the University of Maryland. Talked to a lot of coaches, didn't sign up for the recruiting trips probably like I should have. Ended up going to Maryland and A&M. I do believe that that was God's plan. I was talking to someone and I said, hey, if any of the Texas schools call me, I'm going to go on a trip just because I'd never been to Texas.
Really? How about
and within 15 minutes later, I got a call from Jay Holmes from Texas A&M University, and with his very, very Southern accent and set up to go on a visit. Didn't know much about the school. That following Sunday, went to church, and we had a professional football player who played football for Texas A&M there. And was able to talk to him and went on the recruiting trip. It went well, and ended up being offered a full ride because they needed a butterflyer, and I was a butterflyer. And so it worked out well. It was hard going halfway across the country, but
sure,
it was a good experience.
That is fantastic. So Denise, tell us what it was like when you were informed by your children that they may want to go into swimming. What was that like?
Well, it really didn't happen that way. We moved from North Carolina to Texas, and I found a neighborhood that had an 8-lane pool, and it was a 7-pool complex. When my oldest 2 boys were about 7 and 8, I had them join the team. I wanted them to do something in the summer, and I wanted them just to be safe in the pool. Like that. Sure, I had taught them how to swim just casually, but I just wanted them to be even safer. And then as we did that over years, the 2 girls started swimming. My first son hated it. Like I made him do it, told him he had to do it until he became a lifeguard, and that's what he did. My next, I saw talent in him. He just had a natural butterfly, a natural stroke. So I started right before he turned 12, I was like, hey, let's do club. He was absolutely not. The next year I was like, look, you got to do something. He wasn't doing activities like the others were. So I was like, you either need to play an instrument or try club. And the whole summer he was like, I want to play the ukulele, or I want to do, like the craziest things. And so finally at the end of the summer, he's like, I'll try out. And then my oldest daughter, she was on board the whole time. Everything she tried, she loved, and she did well. She danced, she played basketball, everything. She just loved it. So she was all on board. So they tried out, and they got in, which they were actually lucky because it was an Olympic year. And I found out there was like 120 kids on the waiting list.
Wow.
But and with Tyler being 13, they could have just said, no, it's too late.
Mhm.
But they took them both. And it just kind of started from there. And then my youngest, she ended up starting at my youngest ended up starting at 9 a couple of years later.
Got it. Well, it's very impressive what the children have done. Tell me, is there something that you learned perhaps in college that you have shared with your children that has paid dividends in their swimming careers?
I'm sure there's a lot of things. I try to stay out of it as much as possible, and let the coaches coach. And swimming has changed so much. So there's a lot, that I learned and that is not correct anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the biggest things is I learned about myself. And okay, I hope this sounds all right, but swimming is so hard mentally. We put so much pressure on ourselves. And even as a Division I athlete who made honorable mention All-American in relays, I left my career as looking at it as a failure because I didn't make NCAAs individually and I didn't make Olympic trials. And when I started watching my kids swim and the kind of what was seen as success, I started reevaluating what my swimming was, and kind of saw it in a different light, and I guess saw it in more of a positive light. And I think that has helped me to be realistic in my kids' swimming and their goals. And I mean, something I've always realized is swimming is pure talent, what it boils down to. And so having that, looking through that lens for my kids, I could look at them as individuals and kind of help them with their goals, being realistic and being happy in their successes for each of the individuals.
Oh, wow.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a comment and a response I never would have guessed, knowing you for a number of years now. I never would have guessed that, but I appreciate your honesty on that. Hey, let's take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Heat One, the program that makes good swimmers great. We'll be back in just a moment.
If you have a competitive swimmer in your family, you might choose to enroll them in Heat One, our initial mental training program for swimmers. Heat One is a 6-week program delivered over approximately 3 months via Zoom, where swimmers and their parents can learn more about goal setting, mindfulness, flow, relaxation, and confidence. By developing these areas, swimmers will observe a quantum leap forward in their training process and execution at swim meets. Go to psychsheet.com and sign up for Heat One, your initial mental training program for swimmers. We'll see you at the pool and on the award stand.
We're back with our guest, Denise Andruss, from the Lakeside Aquatic Club in Texas. I might also say the 14 and under age group champ, something like 3 or 4 out of 5 years in a row. Denise, how are things at LAC, and how are your kids progressing?
I guess good things are good at LAC. We haven't really started back up yet. Our coaches are at a clinic somewhere, and we'll start on Monday. So we'll see how the season goes once it gets started.
I understand that you have been ranked, or LAC has been ranked the number 1 12 and under group. Is that accurate?
Last short course season. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's got to make you feel good about your choice of which club to join and things along those lines.
Yeah, well, I mean, stuff like that is great, but it takes, just like a handful of superstars to get those points. And we happen to have some 10-year-old, 11 and 12-year-old superstars last year. So it was a good year.
I gotcha. Congratulations on that, especially coming off the COVID-19 time frame that was a challenge to all of us. Denise, do you remember and what it was like for you when they were asking questions about your competitive nature versus their competitive nature? Did that ever come up in any of the conversations that you've had, in particular with the two who are still in high school?
I mean, I don't know if they've never brought it to me. I do think my youngest has more of a competitive nature than and more like me. The others had to learn it as they went along, and I think that my older daughter is still learning it because all kids are different, and all four of mine are very, very different. So
sure. That's interesting, and obviously I am well versed on the strength and the attributes that your two youngest kids, actually 3 of the 4 that I personally know, have brought to LAC and to their league championships and state championships and their results. But I gotta think that at some point in time, you had some kind of an influence on them, even if the influence was staying out of the coaching or the mental aspects or the nutrition or making sure they get enough sleep.
Yeah, I mean, they know that I'm there for them no matter what.
Of course.
I try to stay out of the coaching at 100%. Every once in a while there's something that I'll watch for a really, really, really well, especially at the beginning. I remember I watched one of them, and backstroke would recover out of the water. And that drove me nuts. And I watched it for like 2 months and no one did anything. And so it was finally like, okay, we're watching videos and I'm going to explain to you why. Because I'm very big on like explaining why, not just saying like, this is what you have to do. This is the why. And, but I think a lot of it more, I'm just there as a sounding board when they need it. When they have a tough race or a tough meet, just to remind them that they're just to do their best. And that's what I tell them. When I drop them off at practice, I say, have fun, do your best and be kind. At meets, I pray with them before they go in whenever I can, and just remind them to do their best. And to remind them that this talent is from God, and that they need to honor him in their words and the actions the best they can, which, we do our best, we mess up, but,
of course,
my youngest is the most competitive. So she also, can struggle with disappointment sometimes, especially when she was younger. And we had a lot of talks about that. At first I did a lot of, we don't cry. You can't cry. It looks bad. And in a way, I still agree with that. I don't want her to, like, because she's very emotional. She'll get upset, and I don't like her crying on deck. But the more I've read from, Michael Phelps and Allison Schmidt, and, even now Caleb Dressel, and you look at these athletes, I think we put them in a box and tell them you have to behave this way. And I've really, like, just over the last few months, I've been reevaluating that. Like, I don't want my kids to appear like a bad sport, but in the same sense, they have the right to their emotions. And sometimes those emotions are out of pain, out of frustration, and so I'm trying to balance that, so that they know, well, you have that right to those emotions, but, be careful where you do it, in front of, because when you're like you're upset and you're, making tags cuts in practice. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you can't act that way, because others around you are gonna, not like it.
Yeah, human nature is what it is.
Yep.
I can certainly appreciate that perspective. It's interesting. I'll be writing a blog in the next day or two about Caleb Dressel and the mental effects and the pressure of what he has been going through and what other competitive swimmers have gone through, even at the highest levels. And you're exactly correct about I can't necessarily be in a box right now. I need to be who I am. But I can understand where you have come from on that level. So if you were able to share maybe one or two things with parents who have a child who is desiring to swim, just starting with club swimming, assuming they've maybe had a summer or two, so they understand a little bit about it, but the parents do not necessarily understand club swimming at this point in time and the intensity of club swimming, especially in a state like yours. What would it be? What would you tell parents about what they are in for relative to time to volunteer, the monthly payments, the suits, the all of the equipment that comes with this very expensive sport?
It is expensive, and it is all consuming, which I knew, going into, but the whole big club was a very new experience for me because I swam small club. It's expensive. Mine are at the highest level in our club. It's over $200 a month now. You've got, your practice suits, your equipment that the coaches let them know they have to have. And then, as they get better, then there's the technical suits that are required.
Oh, yes.
So Tyler, since he's my oldest boy, well, he's my second child, and he was the only boy that swam. Since he started at 13, he went right. Well, I guess it took about a year. He went right to compression, which is a lot of money. But he was going for a tags cut, and so they're like, he needs one, and so he got it, and so he quickly. My oldest daughter didn't want one for the longest time. She actually waited until she was like 14 because she just didn't like the tightness. But then my youngest, who progressed like crazy quickly, she had one within 9 months because she was making tags.
Got it.
So she put the 12 and under, which is a lot less expensive. But I spend a lot of time, now that all of mine are 13 and over, I spend a lot of time looking for sales on arena.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, now that everybody's in compression, I'm not paying $550 yet, so I got to do my best. So
yeah, no, it's expensive, especially for girls and the family of girls, of which you are well versed on. Other than the economics of swimming, anything else the parent should know relative to nurturing their child through this age?
I think number one is just to have fun. Make sure that the kids are having fun. Don't put pressure on your kids. And I think that there's a lack of understanding of what like the motivational charts mean.
Sure.
Because I see all the time in like parent forums and stuff, parents are like, well, when's my kid going to get a AA?
Sure.
Well, maybe never.
Yeah.
Because that's top 10% in the country, and not everyone can be in the top 10%. Like I wish they could, but they can't. And so kind of understand where your kids are and look for those little progresses. Don't like, your kids starting out and be like, oh, when am I going to make tags? I mean, tags, 2 out of 3 of mine made tags. It's fast. It's really, it's probably one of the hardest meets for age groupers in the country to qualify for. It's faster than that. I didn't even know there was an age group sectionals meet until you had mentioned that to me. But tags is faster. So I think it's the fastest state meet in the country. And so
I would suspect so.
So like that, make sure their goals are adequate to where they are, because you're just looking towards, failure. And I try to do that with mine now. My youngest has brought up like, I want to go to trials, and I hope she makes trials, but
Sure.
that can't be the ultimate goal, because that's what led to me thinking that everything was a failure. And so you just got to take it. I tell her, take it one step at a time. And I tell her not to chase, the next cut. I want to say she's got 5 futures cuts. Only one of them she actually went for. The first one she got was in season, and the coach had to tell her, and she had to tell me.
Really?
We're not even thinking about it. And so, I don't want her thinking about juniors cuts. I don't, just swim. If it happens, it's going to happen. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's my attitude with all of my kids. Just do your best. And I know that God he knows how fast they're going to be, and there's nothing we can do to make that different. And every kid there's a different place for every kid. And just slow it down and be happy, as it goes. And, mine, that one progressed very fast, and I know she could hit a peak at any time. And, and I try to prepare her for that. It just happens. And she knows that. She's like, oh yeah, I might have dropped 15 seconds this year. Well, that doesn't mean I'm going to drop 15 seconds next year. Because we had those conversations for her to be realistic, and manage her expectations.
Indeed. Denise, you bring up an important component, and I think you're uniquely qualified to answer this, because there are differences in boys and girls relative to the ages at which they peak and what happens beyond that. Would you share with our audience a little bit about, to help them manage their expectations just based on their own hereditary and biological challenges that they may be going through?
Yeah. It's very different for boys and girls, and it's very individual. My kids were very different. But for boys, they tend to go through puberty later. And therefore at 15 or 16, they, grow 5-6 inches. They get stuck, they get stronger. And then they get faster. My son actually was younger. My oldest actually had a later in puberty, and he's 6'3" now. 6'3" with big feet and huge hands, but would not swim.
Okay.
But my other son, I think he was 12, and one day he just said, "Hey mom," and I was like,
wow,
what in the world? Where did that come from? So, he's 5'11", and he's been 5'11" since he was 14. Obviously his muscle mass has increased and everything got stronger. But with girls, puberty does the exact opposite. They're usually, they can have their big drops at a younger age. Then they hit puberty and their bodies change, and they've got all the stuff that the girls have to deal with that guys don't have to worry about. And it can wreak havoc. It doesn't have to, and doesn't always, but it often happens to female breaststrokers, little girl breaststrokers that are really fast. And then all of a sudden they become a woman, and that stroke's gone for them. It doesn't have to happen, but a lot of times it happens. And so you're looking when, at that 13, 14, you can see it in the charts, in the motivational charts. Sure. 10 and under girls are faster. 11 or 12 girls are a little bit faster. Some of them may be even. 13, 14, boys are so much faster. And then the gap just keeps going as they get older, because the boys just get bigger and stronger, and the girls, they had reached that point. And once they reach that point, it takes a great coach. And from, the research I've done, it takes a great coach, and it takes the little stroke changes to make those differences for the girls as they get older. So, expecting, bad years. One thing I've talked to my kids about, and particularly my youngest, because she is good in free fly back, and I am, excuse me. I remind her, you're not going to have a great season for every stroke, and accept that. And she really saw that this summer, because last short course, her freestyle and her fly were fantastic. Her backstroke was inching up there. This summer, her fly was awful. Like nowhere near. But her backstroke was really good. And it was just a hard summer for her. There was a lot of lessons learned. And that's what I'm always telling her. Like, you got to remember those lessons of that meet or that season. So I tell all of mine. But have your kids swim everything. And if they're struggling in one thing, there might be a freestyler, but it's okay to not be a freestyler for a season.
Sure,
because,
of course.
It's better off trying to do something else than being frustrated because you're getting nowhere in your main stroke. And so I don't know. I think that's an important point. And I saw that in my own swimming. There were years I was a butterflyer, but like one year in high school, I swam backstroke instead of fly because the fly was just not there. And so, So my freshman year, I swam two events, and then my sophomore year, I swam 2 different events because I was just a different year.
How about that? Great insights, Denise. I appreciate you sharing it with so many parents who, in particular, may be wondering what the expectations are. As you indicated, everybody expects their child to get 4 A's, 3 A's, double A's, et cetera, when in fact BD may be the limit to some of their talent at that point in time, but it doesn't mean it's that for the next year as well. So you've given us a lot of tempered hope to understand what's going on based on the biology and the hereditary of each individual swimmer. And I think that is useful for parents to understand. It doesn't mean, however, that they shouldn't be working on the mental aspects of everything they're doing, because the mental work that we advocate in Psych is good for musicians, and it's good for school, and it's good for every other area of life. And so whether your child is competitive in swimming or not, there are certainly reasons that you might want to give them this opportunity and maybe spend some time. We're going to take another break here for just a moment from our sponsor, Heat One. We'll be back in just 1 minute. Thank you.
If you have a competitive swimmer in your family, you might choose to enroll them in Heat One, our initial mental training program for swimmers. Heat One is a 6-week program delivered over approximately 3 months via Zoom, where swimmers and their parents can learn more about goal setting, mindfulness, flow, relaxation, and confidence. By developing these areas, swimmers will observe a quantum leap forward in their training process and execution at swim meets. Go to psychsheet.com and sign up for Heat One, your initial mental training program for swimmers. We'll see you at the pool and on the award stand.
Well, Denise, the time has flown by as it did many of the years ago when we were at LAC sitting in the bleacher section talking about the kids, their strokes, their joys, their challenges, everything dealing with life. And that was all pre-pandemic. Things obviously changed since that point in time. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with our Psych Sheet for Parents groups that would be useful in how they take a look at what they expect from their kids, or how they can best manage their kids' desires, goals, dreams, and objectives?
Well, I just wanted to say that the whole mental aspect is huge, because I can sometimes see the mannerisms of my kids on the pool deck and kind of know how they're going to swim, or how when they get out of the car, and I think that positive thinking and not positive thinking, positive words are so important. I never put pressure on my kids to make a cut or to go this time or whatever. Sure. I just remind them, number one, what lessons did you learn if it was a bad race, a bad meet, or whatever? Mm-hmm. And then what can we do to get you ready for the next time? And a lot of that often happens between prelims and finals, that we have those talks, that what did you do wrong? What did you do right? What do you need to do in order to get ready? Taking a nap, eating, praying, whatever you do, you need to do to get ready. Talk to your coach, and just work through that, especially at a younger age, because then as they get older, that they could do a lot of that on their own. But just being there, being positive. Never ever saying, well, you need to be at this place, you need to be beating this person, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's going to push the kids out of the sport before helping them to succeed if we're pushing things on them. It needs to be internal, and they need to enjoy it, because if they are not enjoying it, they're going to walk away as well.
Exactly. You got to know the why. Why are they having fun? Why are they swimming? And the two merge together in a way that sustains them throughout their high school years. Denise, that is absolutely fantastic. And I want to thank you again for spending time participating in the Psych Sheet podcast. Best of luck to your kids, the one in college and the two that are in high school. And we appreciate your time, your level of expertise, and what you bring to our podcast. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you so much. That'll do it for today's edition of the Psych Sheet podcast. I'm glad that you were able to join us today. We appreciate Denise being a part of our program as well. To all our friends down at in the Lakeside Aquatic Club, we say hello from North Carolina. We want you to know that we are with you, and we are following you all on Meet Mobile on a regular basis. Denise knows we're always texting back and forth. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, parents. Thank you for being a part of the Psych Sheet podcast.
This has been the Psych Sheet podcast, brought to you by Heat One, the initial mental training program for your child. Join us again for the Psych Sheet podcast, and consider joining our membership site so you too can learn from industry experts every week. Check us out at psychsheet.com, and we will see you at the pool.